Hey, friends. Welcome to the Divorce Clarity Studio on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, Podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of LZL Coaching, a boutique coaching firm focused on divorce, relationships, and life transitions. Like many of you, my life has been shaped by many chapters, from my early career as an attorney to my roles as nonprofit leader and community builder, to Jewish educator and spiritual counselor, to today as a values-driven divorce coach. I can look back and see how each chapter quietly shaped the way I accompany people through life's most profound transitions. I created the Divorce Clarity Studio because I believe divorce is about so much more than the legal process. It's about identity, relationships, parenting, finances, healing, and discovering who you really are. So whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of the process, learning to co-parent, or rebuilding your life afterward, my hope is simple, that you'll leave each conversation feeling a little less alone, a little more grounded, and a lot more confident in taking your next clarity-informed move. So let's jump in. Our show today is called Reinventing Your Work Identity Post-Divorce. So much about divorce is wrapped up in fears and anxiety about money. What will I get in support? Will it be enough? Will I need to go back to work? I've been out of the workforce so long. Who would want to hire me? How am I going to do this? Going back to work after divorce, or recreating your work life as you launch your next chapter, is a transitional moment that can feel impossible to navigate. Our guest today is Rachel Spekman, a career alignment coach, therapist, and former corporate leader who helps high-performing professionals build careers that fit who they are, not just what looks good on paper. She combines psychology, career strategy, and practical planning to help clients navigate career transitions with clarity and confidence without sacrificing financial stability. Rachel is the founder of Made for More Coaching, where she empowers people to create work that aligns with their values, strengths, and purpose. Rachel and I speak the same values language, and that's why I thought she would be the perfect expert for the Divorce Clarity Studio. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So when I start each of my interviews, I start with the same basic question. Tell us a little bit about you. What's your story? How did you get into the reinvention business?
The reinvention business, the biz. Okay, so I'm Rachel. I am a therapist and a career alignment strategist, is what I call myself. This is actually my third chapter of my career. I started as an educator because I love children, and I learned quickly, it took about 7 years, that was not the right path for me. And I'm going to talk a bit about how you learn and apply different parts of who you are to each chapter. I took a lot of those skills and actually pivoted it to the nonprofit sector. And from there, I realized I love starting things. I love getting organizations off the ground. And I live in Boston, and there is a thriving startup system here. And so I joined the startup system, and I was able to use so many of these skills. Well, here I was moving along. Things were going great when not a divorce, but a very long fertility journey came my way. And really, really knocked me off of my feet and made me really look at myself and say, what do I want to be doing with my precious time and talent? Fast forward, after I conceived my first child, I realized I was in the wrong room entirely in my career. And so I took a really long, hard look at myself and made a large pivot, the largest adult calculated risk, which is to become a therapist. So when I became a therapist, I realized there are so many people who feel so out of alignment with their careers. And that's what I focus on now, is helping people figure out the psychological work that's going on with the career transition work and the actual implementation of how we can think about marketing ourselves effectively, but only after we know who we are and what we want first.
Right. So what you're saying is that this is all tied up in identity, right? It's all about our identities. So when we begin our careers, we're not really sure, right? We think we follow a path. We follow a path that we think we're supposed to follow. Maybe someone told us about this path. Maybe this seemed like it was the right path at the right time. And maybe it was. But we gain information and we're collecting data in each job that we take. And so as we evolve in different roles and different times of our lives, those values and needs and alignments change. And, going through a traumatic moment of fertility issues is something that it shakes your identity because things happen to us that we didn't expect. And that's sort of the way life rolls, is that life happens to us and not according to plan. So when life happens not according to plan, what do we do next? And do we, dig in and say, no, but that plan was supposed to be my plan. I have to live that plan. Or do we do a major pivot and say, hey, there's something else that's going on with me. I need to shift. And making the shift of becoming a therapist and going back to school when you're pregnant or after you've just had your first child is like quite a career pivot. And it's a risk. And so, I definitely applaud you for acknowledging the inconsistencies in your life so that you could start building on what you wanted to create and make consistent. And it sounds like you lived the story that you're working through with your clients. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we might get into this, but this wasn't my original intended path when I was going to make a change. I help people figure out that, first of all, a lot of what you're talking about, I call that professional asymmetry.
Okay, professional asymmetry. Great.
So that means that you're presenting a certain way professionally, but personally or internally, you're feeling very differently about the work. Sometimes that's called crying in the bathroom when you get into the brass tacks of it. But however you're presenting feels very incongruent with what's actually going on internally.
Okay.
And many of us can withstand that because we have to live in the world, we have to pay our bills. However, over time, the accumulation of that or the cumulative energy of that starts to wear on us. And I do think as we get older and our values change, or as we move through life, as you said, often we don't want to feel performative. That our energy for that changes.
Yeah.
Right. So when you watch, when you're like 50 and you see the Mean Girls, you're like, oh my gosh, like how could anybody have dealt with that? But that's what you were dealing with at that age potentially.
Right.
And
right.
So what I do with people is I figure out, well, what would feel symmetrical? And then what's realistic with that symmetry?
Okay, what would feel symmetrical and what's realistic with that symmetry? So let's hold on to that.
Okay.
Because our audience are people who are in the divorce world. And now everything that they thought was supposed to be balanced and symmetrical is asymmetrical. And they're making decisions that are going to affect the rest of their lives. They feel very weighted and weighty, and they may not even know what they want to do next. Like the priority might be, I have to earn this much money in order to feed my family. So how am I going to do that? Especially if I haven't been in the workforce. So how do you help people recognize that you can take a moment to assess what your next move is? Like, how do you, pause long enough to craft the right direction when you've had no direction?
Okay. So I think the very first step I do with anyone, and I want everyone who's listening to do with themselves, is to to recognize really and to validate that this is where I am, and to not judge it and to not shame it, and to potentially work with a therapist to figure out what narratives am I telling myself, because
Okay.
so often it's actually confidence that's getting in the way of the
Mm.
progress. So I start a lot with mindset and making sure we're actually feeling in the right mindset, expansive, not scarcity, but not as words, but actually as feeling that way. And from there, really the next tool that I encourage people to think about is, what are your 3 to 5 non-negotiables?
Okay. So tell me more about this. What's a non-negotiable in the work environment?
Okay. So, and you're going to hear I have a lot of frameworks. So I like to think about it as the 3 C's, which is what must be true about the community
Okay.
that I want to be a part of.
Okay.
What must be true about the challenge
Okay.
or the problem I'm solving, and what must be true about the kind of contribution I want to make.
Okay.
Now, the contribution can be the leading one. The contribution is, that is my non-negotiable. I need to earn X amount for my family.
Okay.
And everything else is sort of a waterfall from that contribution. So that's what I mean when I say prioritizing.
Okay.
What are your top non-negotiables? And then crafting around that, as opposed to scrambling scarcity. I need a job. Who's going to hire me? Nope. Here's how much I need to be earning. Here's where I want to be earning it, as much as I can, put that out there. Here's what I want to be doing. And that's what we call it reverse engineering your job search.
Oh, I love that. Reverse engineering your job search. I also am a teacher, and we talk about backward design.
Yes.
So what do we want our students to take away
Yep.
at the end of the lesson, right? What do we want them to know, right? What's the enduring understanding that they have to get? And so language like backwards design or reverse engineering is really interesting in the scheme of redesigning your work identity.
Yes, and sometimes I say it's similar to a house. I mean, you don't say, I need to find a house or an apartment. I'll just look all over the place. No, you have your list of, I need 2 bedroom, 2 bath, stairs, etc. We don't do the same with our careers very often.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that kind of specificity for a variety of reasons. We don't have that often. And the more we can have that, the more we're not going to waste time on a million open houses that aren't even what we're looking for.
Right, right. So that's an interesting analogy. So let's look at, so we have our non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think should be or could be the non-negotiables for people who are starting over after divorce?
Well, this is tricky because I don't think there's a one size fits all.
Okay.
But I will say generally, many people who are going through divorce are in a space of, I'll call it capacity building.
Okay.
So really wanting to not feel micromanaged, to not feel a sense of tightness at work.
Okay.
Because this is potentially what they're moving away from in their personal life.
Right.
And so very often, and as you said in the intro, I'm a values-based coach. And so the values actually inform very often what is going to be in your non-negotiable. And so I say I often, with people going through divorce, because that's a core market that I work with, any kind of life transition, it's autonomy, flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Flexibility, yeah.
Agency. And sometimes this is, I'm going to pitch my employer that I need a different schedule. Sometimes it's, I'm going to look for a remote only environment. And sometimes it's, I'm going to start my own thing entirely. because I don't know of a workplace that does this.
Right. And I see that happening a lot. I mean,
Yes.
that's where I sit, right? I redesigned my work life so that I could be in control of my time. And
Well, I would
so,
actually say you rebuilt it, because I call it you can either refine, if you don't mind me
okay,
saying, stay where you are with your new set of values. You
okay,
can redesign, which is I'm going to go pitch myself to another company, another organization,
okay,
or I can rebuild my professional identity on my own terms.
right. I love that, especially when it comes to divorce, because on my own terms is a really powerful value, right? Because you think that you are being taken taken out of control. You think that your agency is lost. This divorce is happening to you. Someone is telling you how much money you will get in support, and now all of a sudden you have to go back to work. And if you want to maintain the lifestyle you have, and working is not going to be the lifestyle you have if you didn't work before. So what do you want to get out of the work experience? What do you want your takeaway to be? And I think that agency and on your own terms is a really big piece of it. I was speaking to a client earlier today, and she said to me, she hasn't worked in 17 years. She was in the beauty business. She was a hairstylist, part-time hours, never made a huge amount of money. And now she's being told she has to go back to work. So she's, thinking of it in the negative as opposed to the positive. But we sit and we talk about what's positive about going back to work. And I think that she's starting to feel like that is really important to her, that she could earn her own. Just the pressure to earn her own for everything is what's daunting.
Yes, and the beautiful work you're doing with this client, it sounds like. And a big part of this is we spend 70% of our waking hours at work. So most of us do. Um, and so if we think about that, how do we want that time to feel generative to us?
Right.
There's a lot of doom and gloom about work. Of course there is, and layoffs and this and, cutting things back. And then there's actually a lot of people who are getting a lot of joy from work. I would imagine you're getting joy because you're helping, your 3 C's are on, you're contributing to a problem that you want to help solve. You feel sense of community, right? So all of a sudden you're in an expansive mindset. Or this hairstylist, wait, I could actually go back to doing something that I used to love doing, or I could do it differently, or maybe I could be creative and think about social media or whatever the case is.
Right. I mean, and what she's really thinking about, which I really admire in her, is upgrading her skills. It's like being retrained to the new beauty regimens that are out there so that she can be part of the future and not the past.
See, and even with this client, and let's come back to your question about how would someone who's going through a divorce really reimagine. Very often I work with people, or I see people who are, well, I don't know, I'm not skilled enough to do that, or I'd have to start all over again, or right, so they kind of quit before they've begun, if you know that term.
Right.
As opposed to, I call it like a skills gap. Well, what is the skills? It's just factual. What is the skills? I wanted to become a therapist. I wasn't. I need to go to school.
Yeah.
I want to become a hairstylist. I need to get re-credentialed. What's the gap?
Right.
Which is different than I want to become a therapist, but I can never go back to school. How could I afford it? How could I this? How could I that? Right. Then you're in an I can't state, as opposed to well, I think I really want it. Let me do some very deep research, which I really encourage everyone to do. I don't encourage anyone to blow up their life, quit tomorrow. We could do a ton of research on, we've talked about this a little bit, kind of what path do I want to go down, because therapist was one of 3 paths I was evaluating.
Okay.
And then it's, okay, well, how do I want to move to a new house. I'll keep using the house analogy. I have to hire movers. I have to move the furniture. Like, things have to happen to make that move happen.
Right.
And it's the same with the career shift.
Yeah. Doing the legwork in order to be able to make the shift. That's a great place for us to just rest on. We're at about 20 minutes, so we're going to take a quick 30-second break, and then we'll be back with Rachel Spekman, Reinventing Your Work Identity Post-Divorce. And we're back with Rachel Spekman. So, Rachel, we landed on sort of assessing where the gap is between where you are and where you want to be. How do you help someone stop defining themselves by the gap in their resume, the gap in their skill set, and start seeing the value they actually bring to the role they hope to inhabit?
Okay, so there are two tools, exercises I want to introduce everyone to right now. Just at home, you can grab a sheet of paper and do these right now because I want to make these as actionable as possible. So the first one I call the internal wins resume.
Okay.
This is not a resume that lives on LinkedIn or out in the world. This is you writing down each job you've had. It could be stay-at-home parent, it doesn't matter. And what was your favorite part of that job? What were you actually doing? Were you inspiring people? Were you organizing something? Were you learning a new skill? Because this starts to give us positive association with I can do things. I can learn new skills. Okay. And it gives us that data around, well, what are the categories in which I like to actually do things and achieve?
Okay.
So that's the internal wins resume. It's very different than what the market sees, but it's for you. The second is what I call a resume audit.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Yes, I will tell you more. So, let's say right now you have a work day where for 4 hours a day, you're doing blog writing. Okay. 3 hours a day, you're doing sales calls. What I want you to do is write down blog writing, and you're doing it 4 hours a day.
Okay.
How many hours do you actually want to be doing that per day?
Okay.
Sales calls, 3 hours. How many hours do you want to be doing that per day? And why?
Okay.
This is starting to give us what I call our own heat map around our career.
Okay, so what do you mean by heat map?
So I mean, if I want to be doing blog writing for 6 hours and I'm doing it for 4, I better figure out how to turn that up.
Okay.
But so that's what I call a green. You want to do more of that.
Okay.
But if you're doing blog writing for 4 hours and you hate it and you want to do it for 1 hour, that's going in the red zone.
Okay.
If it's 3, it's yellow.
Okay.
So we want to start kind of actually getting more granular around what we're doing with our time, whether it's been assigned to us at work or we're signing up for it at home, and what feels green, yellow, and red. I don't always encourage people to start with the red because it's the heaviest lift to change.
Yeah.
But when we see what's in the green, how can we make it brighter green, I say? Or how can we turn the yellow a little more green? Because this is back to the control piece.
Okay. So what do you mean? Yeah. What do you mean by control piece?
I mean, we can't make progress in what we don't measure.
Okay.
In many ways. And so if we're like, I'm not happy at work, or I don't know what to do next, we start with, well, where are you happy? What do you like to do now? Right. So it's a much more asset-driven approach. And it's more tied into our own values and, well, why do I like blogging so much? Oh, because it's creative and it's this and the world sees it. So all of a sudden we're in dialogue with either with a coach, with ourselves, with ChatGPT, whatever, on what actually gives us that feedback loop
Okay.
around producing something that excites us.
Okay. So what you're saying is that we're collecting data on the tasks that spark joy. To quote Marie Kondo,
Yes.
right? What sparks joy?
Yes.
And we want to bring more of those tasks, experiences, relationships into our life. And we can do that in the work environment. We don't have to be only in the red when it comes to work because our only measure is how much we're earning, right? Like, I think one of the things that you said is like we have our different categories of our wants and needs. And you had the 3 C's. And I'm wondering if it's really about, like, as you said, prioritizing, but it's also like, what is the key issue that is creating a pain point? And how do I make it less painful or more joyful? And those are questions that we tend not to ask ourselves. We tend to just accept the status quo and not want to upset the apple cart. And I wonder, when we are rebuilding our work identity, what can we do in addition to like identifying these different categories, but what can we do to build the space?
Mm. Oh, I love this question. Because there are things you can do and there are things I would encourage you not to do.
Okay, great.
When I was making my career transition, I had a wonderful therapist at the time who said, what if you treat this like a newborn baby?
Okay.
With as much delicacy and thoughtfulness and care around who you would give your newborn baby to hold.
Okay.
Now, when I was making my change and when I see some people, I very often I'll actually talk to partners when I'm working with them, because whoever your support system is around you, they're amplifying your fears or they're amplifying your excitement.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so in my own career transition, I had someone in my life say, you have a great job. Why would you ever leave it? But I'm not happy here.
Right.
I have a post-it on my desk of the 5 reasons I'm staying here, and number 3 is snacks. And I still have a picture of that post-it. And I'm like, I don't think that's why you stay in a career. That maybe when you're 5, that's why you go to camp, but not
Yeah.
as a career as an adult.
Yeah.
And so, jokes aside, like I call it your board of advisors, like whoever's on your team, who's on Team Rachel, like that really matters.
Yeah, it does.
So that's one of the ways I really recommend people be really, especially women, and I'll throw myself in here. Like, I'm an external processor. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it's actually like getting quiet. Like, what do I think first?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the key issue here is, what do I think? What do I want? And why does what I want actually matter? Right? I mean, I think that women going through divorce so often, like, they put everybody else's wants as a priority, or at least they have, maybe for their married life and their parenting life.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been taking the back seat because they need to model for everybody else, or they need to take care of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So actually asking the question, what do I want? What matters to me, is a question people think they know the answer to, but they've never asked the question. So, and I do that with my values clarification. Like, what are your core values? Like, oh, I have core values. Okay, so what are they? And then you have to stop and think.
And how are you living them? And how are you
Right.
not? How does your calendar, how does your time reflect those? I want to tell you, sometimes I'll call myself like a permission coach, like giving yourself permission
Yeah.
to want more, to expect more from yourself. And some people don't want more and they're like, this is fine. Okay, that's fine. But some people do, and they dismiss their own wants quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then just, I don't always say I'm a permission coach, but I will say the top two things I consistently see people struggle with is, one, exactly this: am I allowed to want more? And what does that mean? What do I do with that?
Right.
And the second is, I call myself a coach for high performing professionals. Okay, well, people, I'm not high performing. I'm like, hold on, you run an entire household. Hold on, you've done X, Y, and Z to date. You planned a trip to Disney World for 20 people, whatever it is. It's your own definition of high performance.
Right. Well, it's your own definition that's been interpreted through the lens of other people's opinions, right? When you have been, let's say, the stay-at-home mom who has coordinated everything for your children and their social lives and their education and their medical needs and their sports activities and the social life of your spouse and the world that you walk in and any nonprofit work that you do, you don't think of all of those things as separate jobs responsibilities.
Can I say something there?
Yeah.
I work with people a lot on their resumes as well. And I will encourage people who are like, I don't know what to write on my resume for stay-at-home parent. I will say CEO Spekman household.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is bold, but like, here it is.
Yeah.
And then you literally say strategically organized X, Y, and Z, manage the finances for the same way you would for anything else.
Yeah. You budget.
And you say resulted in, right? Yielded 20% happier kids, 50%, whatever it is, okay? Because you were doing something with that time that was resulting in something else.
Right. Well, and also we feel like we have to measure everything, that if we're not measuring, we don't have worth, right? If I have a child, like my son was diagnosed with diabetes at age 6. I had to educate myself up to what this meant. I had to become a nurse who injected my son regularly and stuck his finger, and I had to advocate for him in the school. So all of these things just became part of my role. I was just being a mom, but I was completing a lot of tasks, and they were also new tasks, and they were also challenging tasks, but they were necessary. So,
and everything you just said, and this is where people also, some people said, I couldn't ever write CEO on my resume. That's too risky. I couldn't tell an employer that I was the, shot coordinator for my child. It's too risky. Yeah. Well, this is where especially since COVID, I want to say people don't want to divorce themselves when they go to work. Pun intended here, bad pun. But people really don't. They want to bring them their full selves. And they want to be around people where they don't have to, of course we have appropriate self-disclosure, but we want to be around people we can be our authentic selves.
Yeah.
So if you on my LinkedIn, it says, I don't know if you know this, but it says career libido specialist.
Okay. Career libido specialist.
Yes.
Tell us.
Okay. So I say, we have our libidos. We're trying to figure out what turns us on. And I'm trying to help you figure out what turns you on in your career and why.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Now, I had a coach who said, don't put that on there. It's going to be disaster. Now, it has been like one of my most effective marketing tools, because people are like, oh, I love that language. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a point of view. And so I think some people say, I couldn't even write CEO of my household. And everybody has to kind of manage their own comfort zone, but I call it the stretch zone. It's a little bit stretchy, but it's kind of going to attract the right person that you might want to work with, who's like, I get it. I was the CEO of my house. I've never seen it. That's so creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, taking a step outside of the language you've been programmed for.
Yes.
Right. So, this work-life libido thing, that's language we wouldn't necessarily associate in that context, but it's descriptive in a way that makes people want to ask questions And I think that is the key to redesigning, reinventing, rebuilding your work identity, is asking questions. And the place you start is asking yourself. And then you do some research and ask other people so that you can see if your wants and needs are aligned with different kinds of roles. Because part of the fear is that we have a very limited perspective of what a job is, and what going to work is. And what we need to do is expand that perspective.
Absolutely.
So, believe it or not, we're at the end of our time.
Okay.
So, but this was so much fun. What would you want my audience to take away? What do you think is the key, a key takeaway from today's talk?
I mean, I hope there are a few, but I would say, so the name of my company is Made for More Coaching, right? Which it was Rachel Spekman Coaching. And then I said to a client, get out of that toxic environment. You're not meant for that. And she said, I said, you're made for more. And she's like, that's the name of your company. So I want people to take away that whatever's going on, you are made for more.
Yeah.
And while that might sound cheesy, it actually is I think it's incumbent upon us to figure out, what does that mean for me? What does that mean in this chapter? What does made for more mean for me financially, spiritually, day to day, community, and how can I bring that to life in the ways that I can right now?
Yeah, I love that. Made for more. In divorce, people fear that they don't deserve it, or they're made for little. They accepted a little, so they're only worth a little. And so this concept of made for more is really powerful, and it resonates with me. I love this idea of moving forward with confidence because we're made for more. So tell us, how can my audience find you? How can we get in touch?
Yeah. So you can always go to my website. It's at Rachel Spekman, .com, madeformorecoach.com. And I would love to connect with people as I do a discovery call with people. I work through your non-negotiables with you. And I really try to assess what I call is like your career blueprint for right now. I say it's as individualized, your career, my life circumstance. It's as individualized as our own thumbprint. And so very often we need a partner to think through with us, how would I actually start to make some strategic changes?
Right. And the thing is, working with a coach, you are being faced with questions that you might have, but you might not know how to articulate those questions. And that's why having a coach from the outside asking you the questions that then triggers more questions, that helps you start believing that you really are made for more. So,
and start implementing those changes.
Right.
That's what I've learned. I love being on podcasts. I love listening to podcasts, but someone once said to me, we do a lot with information, but we double do it with implementation. So how do we implement whatever we can from this?
Right. And so working with you helps people actually implement. First, we do the legwork, and then we create the blueprint, and now we implement.
Exactly.
And I love that. So thank you so much. I love this talk. I think you have so much to offer.
Oh, thank you.
My community and to my community. Thank you for listening to the Divorce Clarity Studio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, like, and follow us. And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share. Remember, you're not alone, and you can walk with a guide on your side. And oh yeah, just a reminder, nothing in this program constitutes legal, therapeutic, or financial advice. We offer education and clarity. And with that, we will see you next time on the Divorce Clarity Studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.